Hello and welcome back to Chiefsman's Corner, the recorded version. I will more than likely be playing a game when this goes live around 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. However, feel free to leave any comments or feedback on the show. I'm your host, Coach Winuvas, one of the leadership team here in WFL, and the coach of the Los Angeles Rams. This show is going to be more of a filler episode. We're going to be showcasing our draft class strength setup for this Season 8 draft. I do realize it's a little bit late, but the way the draft fell, plus we had an ice storm down here where I live, which kept me locked out a couple of days and unable to get online because the wife was home as well. So it fell kind of awkwardly for me to put out the draft class randomizer. I did randomize it, however, before the draft offline, and I'll be revealing that in this show. We're going to talk a small change in our offensive play call philosophy as far as our cooldowns. And then we're going to answer a few Ask the Chief questions to round out this episode of Chiefsman's Corner. If anyone's tuned in during the premiere, thank you for watching, quote, live. If you're watching this at any time, though, thank you for watching. Any and all support is appreciated. Without you guys, the WFL doesn't exist. The first thing we're going to talk about, as always, is the WFL's incentive plan. The incentive plan allows you to get some perks that aren't available for every member simply by doing some extracurricular activities that involve WFL. Anything from Twitter to articles on the Neon Sports site, to commenting or participating in the show, even chatting in Discord can earn you experience points. Anything that makes the WFL a more immersive experience and increases its presence in the Madden community can earn you some sort of credit. A link to the incentive plan is available using the command /incentive plan in Discord. That is all one word, /incentive plan in Discord. I dare say most of you know about it because we had a lot of folks hit all Madden, all pro, and pro status, probably the most we've ever had. And it's definitely appreciated. Thank you very much for that. Next thing to talk about is our Ask the Chief form that you can use between episodes to submit any questions you have for me, and I will answer them during the show, giving you credit for the question. It's an easy way to build up incentive points and provide extra content for this podcast. You can use the command /AskTheChief. That is all one word, /AskTheChief in Discord to pull up the form to submit that in. And lastly, a little bit of admin talk as I put on the commissioner hat for just a moment. Please be sure you are set up to broadcast to YouTube if you are not already in that boat. And make sure that when you stream, your previous play art is on. I do want to remind you, YouTube is mandatory for WFL, as is showing previous play art. And this is for keeping up with gameplay rules violations and making sure guys are doing the right things around our rules around excessive concepts, 70-30, things like that. YouTube is for the reason of Twitch does not save data for very long, if at all. We've had copyright issues. We've had some multiple issues over the past year or two with Twitch, so we've gotten away from using Twitch as a partnership with YouTube, and we use YouTube exclusively. So please be sure you're streaming to YouTube. Make sure your PS5 account is tied to YouTube as well. If you need help with that, please feel free to ask anyone in the admin chat about that. With the housekeeping out of the way, we're going to get the show rolling. We're going to go ahead and jump into this draft class strength randomizer as I pull it up here on screen for you. Here we go. And let's go ahead and get this a little bigger. And we're going to do it similar to how we did last year, where I'm going to just reveal each one in kind, hopefully without you guys seeing the top end, which unfortunately in the spreadsheet era, I'm going to have to reveal that. So let me see if I can't get rid of that, unfortunately. So we're going to start here. We're going to go ahead and reset this. And our quarterback class is a very weak class. So if you need a quarterback, this is not the draft to get one. Hopefully you got one last year. We had a multitude of quarterbacks go first two rounds. So if you need a quarterback, this is not the class for you. Running backs, however, are strong. So if you do need a running back, maybe a feature back for the future, as far as we go this particular cycle, the running back position may be the one for you in this class. At the wide receiver position, we are normal. There is no difference as far as strength of schedule or strength of player here. So wide receivers are normal. Tight ends are also normal. So if you're looking for a skill position on the outside or someone to anchor there around the tackle position, you hopefully have one already, or maybe you pick the one or two that are going to be good in this particular class. It's not looking particularly overly tight end heavy, but it's not looking very weak as the quarterback position is. At tackle, offensive tackles are strong. So if you're needing an offensive tackle, this may be the draft for you. Also, interior offensive line is normal. So if you needed an interior guard, you may have to draft a tackle and move them to the inside. That includes the center position as well. So guards and centers are going to be normal, standard, what's the word I'm looking for? Randomized setup. So no stronger, no weaker than anything else. Defensive ends. I know we have a lot of interest in edge rushers, and unfortunately, defensive ends wise, we are normal. So we're not going to have anything out of the ordinary at the defensive end position. This is specifically left and right end. However, our interior defensive line is very strong. There will be a few generational talents potentially in this class. If you are needing a defensive tackle to anchor that middle, now's the time to go get it. This might be one of those drafts where the defensive tackle goes first overall. Doubtful, but we'll see how the draft class shakes out. At the linebacker setup, this concludes outside and inside linebackers. The class is strong, so you could potentially find an edge rusher that could be solid on that outside. Again, this is all linebacker position, so it's left outside linebacker, right outside linebacker, and middle linebacker. So you might be heavy at middle linebacker and weak on the, or weaker or normal on the outside, so do be aware of that. Edge might be tough to find. We'll see how the draft class actually shakes out when we get into week 3 and Buckman's big board starts to fill out a little bit. At the corner position, we have a strong cornerback class. So while the wide receivers are normal, the cornerbacks are strong. So if you need somebody to cover those guys that have been lighting it up these last 2 draft classes, guys like a Landon Urban, guys like Seontae Ginn, guys like, who was the guy that went? Ferguson. I mean, there's a lot of guys that went this particular class and last that have really caught on fire. So the cornerbacks coming up this particular draft, hopefully we'll be able to match them in quality. We go to the safety position. The safety position is normal. No outliers one way or the other. At kicker, we have a weak kicking class. I don't know if that's going to make a difference to anybody, but we do have a weak kicking class, and our punters are normal. So that is our breakdown of the draft class for 2026, which is our next draft. So just to let you know, that's going to be our randomizer. It was already set. I set it in preseason. So basically, as of week 1, that is our draft class strength setup. So do be aware of that as we move into the season. Hopefully you got some good news at positions you need. Hopefully you get bad news at positions you need. But that is the draft class as it stands for the upcoming Season 8 of WFL, our 3rd season in Madden 24. And with that, we're going to jump into our Ask the Chief segment as I bring it up here and get it situated on the screen for you. Boom, there we go. Excuse me. Putting on your media hat. What are the storylines going into the season for you? And both of these questions come from our Broncos owner, Crazy Fast, so thank you, Crazy Fast, for that. Putting on the media hat and kind of seeing where I think stuff's going. First question, I think, has to go to the 2 folks that participated in the WFL Bowl this past couple of weeks ago now, WFL Bowl 7, between the Vikings and Jaguars. First off, for the Vikings, I think they will be the first to tell you in line they choked. They had a 28-0 lead and end up ultimately losing 42-41 in what ended up being a great WFL Bowl. Didn't look that way going into the second quarter, but suddenly the Jaguars caught life and just caught lightning in a bottle and came back and ultimately won that game. Vikings, it's hard to not say that they choked that away. They had the Jaguars down on the mat and just couldn't keep them down. Do they suffer a pained season after that choke job? Because if you recall, in real life, and I kind of like but hate bringing this up to Falcons fans, 28-3 happened, and the Falcons really have not been the same since that loss to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. So do the Vikings suffer the same fate? Do they decline a little bit? They've moved on from Kirk Cousins. They've drafted they've got a young quarterback in the fold in Damian Wilson. Do they move on? Do they do better with him? Do they do worse with him? Is there growing pains? Do the Vikings maintain their dominance over the NFC North, or is somebody else going to jump out there and take the North by the horns? For the Jaguars, do they suffer the same fate as the Season 6 champion Colts? Unfortunately, the Colts had a really down year, a surprisingly down year. By Coach Juke standards, I think they were really underperforming. Do the Jaguars suffer the same fate? Obviously, an offseason comes by, teams get better. Did the Jaguars get better, good enough, and maintain their talent level to keep the hope alive for a repeat here in WFL. NFC South is another point of emphasis for me. We've got two fairly new coaches with the Bucks and Panthers. They're both kind of jumping in with a couple of games under their belt from last season. How do they start their season? How do they get rolling to start the season? And then all the playoff teams from Season 7, did they do enough in the offseason to keep their place in the playoffs? I'm hoping for a little bit of parity. We'll see if that happens with this season going into Season 8. So that's kind of the things I'm looking for as far as kind of putting my media hat on for a minute and seeing where things go. And then the last question as we wrap this podcast up, there are lots of teams with new quarterbacks under center. Who do you predict, to separate themselves? Well, I kind of went through and I looked at all the quarterbacks that got drafted this past draft. You got Weston in Denver. You've got Isaiah Allen at New England. You've got Aiden Bain, who went first overall to the Packers. You've got Cole Meredith, who went in the second round to the Miami Dolphins. And then you got that wild card, J.J. Pitts, who went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, the Chiefs have Mahomes, so I don't know if Pitts is going to get a whole lot of action in Season 1, but is this a potential changing of the guard type of scenario where Mahomes moves on and Pitts becomes the quarterback in Kansas City? That's highly unlikely, but it is something to talk about as far as will Pitts do the unthinkable and unseat Mahomes from Kansas City. I personally doubt it, but we'll see. Meredith, I know Kobe talked big about Meredith falling into his lap and him being the quarterback for his team. Will that be the case? Is he the key to turning the Dolphins around? Weston, I know through 2 games, has gotten 2 wins, one against the Buffalo Bills, which is a quality win. We'll see if we can keep that up. Isaiah Allen is in a tough AFC East division. You've got the Bills twice. You've got the Dolphins, who are now reloaded twice. You've got the Jets, who are always up at the top of the division. That's a tough AFC East, and Isaiah Allen comes in replacing Lance Brewer, who did very well for the Patriots last year, but the Patriots quickly move on, kind of like a little bit of a la Josh Rosen scenario where the new guy comes in, Kyler Murray, and takes over. Of those guys, I think Weston and Meredith are going to be the big key guys. Allen would be my wild card. Bain is the man regardless. Was he the right pick at 1? Only time will tell. I think the biggest quarterback that's going to make an impact that's new this year that wasn't at the starting job last year is Damian Wilson, the quarterback for the Vikings. Mainly because Rim can play offense. He can score points almost at will. Defense is his problem, as he will probably tell you, but offense has never been his problem. With a new type of quarterback, because Wilson's more of a dual threat running style quarterback, not totally run, but a guy who has legs and can be more mobile in that offense. Does he unlock the next phase of that Vikings offense, with a Justin Jefferson, with a TJ Hawkinson around him? Does he unlock that next level? Do they change their offense to look for Wilson's strengths or get to Wilson's strengths? I think that's the biggest one. I think that'll make the biggest difference, because I think if anybody can unlock a quarterback's potential, it'll be Rim with his offensive capabilities. And with that, we're done with this podcast. Again, this was going to be a shorter podcast just because there's not a whole lot to talk about. We're just in week 2, and I didn't really want to do a week 1 recap. It's still very early in the season. But next time I'm on, next Monday, we'll have some more players of the podcast. We'll have more of that other stuff. There is one thing I did forget to talk about, though, as I jumped in to Ask the Chief, and that was the cooldown stuff that we decided to change here going into week 2. So I will hit that real quick before I hit the outro. So we did it slightly out of order. So we have decided after week 1 to change the offensive play call cooldown, offensive only. The only thing that changed was instead of 5 plays before you can call the same play, it's 8 now. And the main reason is we're seeing in our watching of gameplay film from folks that are reporting, from folks that aren't reporting, that we're just kind of watching at random, we're seeing guys run a lot of the same plays. Now, the cooldown will not stop you from running the same plays if they're in different formations. That's the one caveat to this, unfortunately, is that we can't stop. So, for example, like a play like slants. If you call slants in one formation, you can jump to another formation and call the same play called slants, and there's no cooldown because it's technically a different play. But I will say that if you are a person that relies on certain money plays to succeed, this will make it harder. And also, by parlance, whenever we do track games, we do log games on a play-by-play basis, and we can see what plays you've called, and we even have a counter if you call a play too many times, even if it's in the different formations. Obviously, we don't log the formations you call, but we do log the plays you call. So if we start seeing the same plays over and over again, that can raise an eye. And if that raises an eye, then we're going to start digging deeper. And if it looks like it's money play based, you may see punishments, even though, or warnings, violations with the PA, even if the game wasn't reported, just because we want you to use your entire playbook. That's what it boils down to. You have almost, usually on average, with a non-custom book, you usually see anywhere between 350 and 400 offensive plays in a standard non-custom book. I will say I use a custom book, and my custom book even has about, I think it's 397. You can call different pass plays if you want to. So what this does with the cooldown is basically, if you are a person that relies on certain plays on certain downs, now you're going to have those in different formations, which means you're going to be calling the play with the same play name, which means we're going to key in even more, and it's going to make it that much harder for you to run those money plays. We are looking to eliminate money plays as much as we can and make sure that guys are calling their entire playbook. If we're requiring it on defense, we definitely need to require it on offense, and that is why we have made the change from 5 play cooldown to 8 play cooldown. It's not a huge difference, but do be aware that it will make a difference, especially if you're one of those folks that only calls like 25 to 30 plays out of your offensive playbook a game. You're going to have to expand. You should already be expanded, honestly. But if you're one of those that locks into a couple of plays a game because they work all the time, you're going to have to really spread out and learn some more of your playbook. That's what we're trying to encourage here. And hopefully you guys see that and kind of respond positively to it. I don't think there'll be any negatives to it from anybody, except for those that might be a little bit guffed because they won't be able to run their money plays every 5 plays. They'll have to wait a couple extra plays. But again, that's why we did it, just to be transparent, let you guys know this was brought up very, very late in the off season, this idea. So we really couldn't implement it right before the season started. But we figured going into week 2, it wasn't a breaking incident to implement it here, and it wasn't anything that would change drastically like how the game plays or anything. It's just a matter of how you call plays. But things like sliders and stuff, that's something we wouldn't change unless it was an emergency situation. But this is something that really doesn't affect how the game plays unless you're one of those that like to call the same plays over and over again. This is just going to make it harder for you, which is the whole intent. With that, though, I'm going to jump into the outro, guys. Thank you for tuning in, whether live in quotes, or with the recording after the fact. I appreciate it. The WFL appreciates it, and we hope you're entertained by this show. Let us know by throwing us a like, a subscribe, commenting. Any feedback, good or bad, is always appreciated, guys. Until next week, when I'm hoping for this to be a live Monday show, folks, the corner is closed.